Welcome back to Between Bells. Our next guest is an improv performer with over 20 years of experience and is trained alongside stars like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. His new book, Getting to Yes and, explores how using basic improv techniques can help you perform better in the workplace. Bob Kulhan joins us now. Tell us how yes and can help us make more money, get a better job.
All right, well, the cornerstone of all improvisation around the world is yes and. Yes is unconditional acceptance. You give me this gift, this offer, this opportunity. I accept it at face value. And is how you accept it, how you adapt, how do you perform at the top of your intelligence, how do you relate to this? And this actually helps you in so many different ways because this two-word core concept actually forces you to slow down, be present, be in the moment, engage with people, listen to the offers and opportunities that are presented to you before you react to them, shooting them down perhaps, or accepting them and moving on. And that can actually help you because life is about relationship building. And if you make the right relationships and strengthen them along the way, you're surely going to at least increase the probability of increasing your income.
Right. And that's also a brainstorming technique, and not only an improv technique, but often in brainstorms, you just get to a stage of yes and let's build on that idea.
Absolutely. So yes and is most classically used in business in brainstorming. And the best way to break that down is actually look back at an old model that was created by Guilford in the 1960s, wherein he separates divergent thinking from convergent thinking. And the divergent thinking is where you have a single point to start and you just start brainstorming, using yes and to come up with a number of different ideas, fail early, fail often, let's make a giant mess. Versus convergent thinking, where you take that giant mess and you start cleaning it up. This is where you put on your critical thinking hat, and this is where you edit, you sort, you fine-tune, you discuss, you debate until you finally come up with that answer. And yes and helps that divergent side succeed because it really encourages people to participate in a very fearless way.
How can we really see the differences between comedic improv versus business improv? Where do you see those main differences?
Well, first, context, right? If you're going to perform comedic improvisation, it should be funny. However, first responders, for example, EMTs, firefighters, we probably don't want them performing whose lines it anyway gags on us as we're trying to stay alive. And so when you start actually taking away the tenets of improvisation from the context of comedy and reapplying them to perhaps an interview or first responders, special forces, chefs, chefs, all the cooking shows have an improvisation theme these days, or business people, then you could take the three core concepts that define improvisation, those being reacting, adapting, and communicating, and redirect them to a number of different ways.
What about improving without people knowing? I would say, in what Peter and I do right now, we do improv all the time.
Yes.
But if
I have no idea what I'm talking about.
But if we're back in the office, how do we do it and no one knows? Like everyone thinks that we know what we're doing. And that
or is it okay to know that you're improving?
I think both are correct. Now, I think it's important to actually subdefine improvisation to say, all right, improvisation could be making something up in the moment and just free-flowing. You can also take the tenets of improvisation and apply them directly to operating within a strategy or trying to achieve something greater. So even in an interview context with perhaps a press release that interrupts the overall flow of a show. How do you get back on track? How do you create momentum? How do you engage with people? Those are all strong tenets of improvisation, whether you see them on a comedic improv stage or you redirect them to real life. And so you could practice those tenets anywhere, anytime, any place, with anyone, and they still make a difference because the core concept's all about engaging and communicating.
Well, once I've mastered the day-to-day improv in the office, how do I use it to help further my career? How can I move up using improv?
All right, so now you're talking about using improvisation techniques for leadership development, perhaps, right? So if you're going to move up,
just trying to get a higher
exactly.
pay raise or something.
If you're trying to get a higher pay raise, theoretically you're going to have people who then follow you, which almost by definition makes you a leader of some kind or manager of some kind. So looking at the elements of engagement and communication. So, and also in the spirit of ideation or brainstorming. So if you take the tenets of improvisation, use them to create a culture in which people are not afraid to talk, not afraid to share information with each other, not afraid, at least for the divergent side, not afraid to fail. Now you've created a team that's based in trust and communication because we're not worried about being judged. We're postponing the judgment and we're just talking to each other. Now you have a group of people who trust and support each other unconditionally. They should trust and support you as well. So really then what we're looking at is the tenets of improvisation as how they relate to influence. And this is, once again, about slowing the brain down to be focused and present, which means as a measure for influence, you can actually relate it to emotional intelligence or mindfulness. All core concepts for emerging leaders, especially in the current state of affairs.
Have you had an experience in your life professionally where you've had to get to that yes and point with someone?
All the time. You know, in my business, Business Improv, we create customized improvisation programs for a wide range of clients. And this is also in the book, Getting to Yes And. How do you get past it? So how do you get past those people who are no people, or yes but people, or choose to use an ego bias or a status quo bias to kind of keep you in your place? And so much of that then is about personal development. How do you comport yourself? How do you hold yourself? How do you engage in the way that you relate to other people as they're trying to shoot you down or say no to you? And so on a regular basis, especially in a city like this with a high intensity level and a number of people who have agendas going different places, it's good to have not only that yes and language, it's good to have that yes and attitude, wherein you're unconditionally accepting people for what they are and who they are, and you're just doing the best you can for yourself to support yourself and support the people around you as well.
What does a program look like? You said you build out programs for clients. What does a yes and program look like?
Well, they come in a number of different fashions. So some of the programs are brainstorming, ideation, then creativity to innovation, really looking at those as two separate arms to develop products with each other. Communication is a huge component of what we do. So you could look at communication as a way to break down silos, companies that have multiple arms in different parts all over the world. And in that, how do you communicate over the phone with each other or distance communication? You can also look at conflict management, dealing with change. We work a lot with a lot of companies on how to actually embrace change, how to push toward the unknown, celebrate VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That Army term acronym which made its way into the business world. How do you deal with the unknown? How do you deal with chaos? And once again, then you can move into leadership.
That's for us at a startup.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. As any entrepreneurs, I'm an entrepreneur as well. You constantly have to deal with a fluctuating set of variables that once you think you've nailed them down, shift right from underneath.
Right, but I think to your point earlier about gaining trust, that you can't really have an open dialogue unless you've established that trust, and then that creates the free flow of ideas.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate it. That's Bob Kulhan there, author of The Art of Getting to Yes